Okay, so now what you're gonna need is some trusty dusty tin foil. Tin foil is good because it is very, like, it doesn't, you can't see through it with light. See, there's no way. And if you're doing a tin can, it might also be good to use tin foil as your lid. I guess you can't really do that, but tin foil as your lid because it is light proof. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just make a cover because the pinhole is gonna be poked through here, and that's what is gonna allow the light in to expose your paper so you get a good picture. So let's see, your paper or your film as well. But for this one, I'm gonna focus mainly on paper because film cameras are a little bit difficult. They just have extra steps for them. But if you're interested in it after you've done this one, then we can for sure talk about it. All right, so you don't necessarily need a piece this big unless your box is very large. Then you will need that. Like if you used an Amazon box or a shoe box, anything like that would be able to do this. What you can do if you don't have a lot of tape is also cover your container in tin foil, because as we saw, let me show you one more time, that no light gets through. The light is on and it doesn't come through. All right, so I'm gonna fold it once and then I'm going to go ahead and just cut a piece. I wasted a lot of tin foil, don't do that. But I'm going to cut a square piece about like this. And now this part is important. I did fold it in half because I do like it a bit thicker. That way, if I mess up my pinhole and it tears, it has a less likelihood of tearing because it is a little bit thicker. I don't know if you could see that, but it is a little thicker than if, see, this is real flimsy. This is just one layer. So I do like to do two. So yes, I will repurpose that. But before you attach it, you're gonna want to put your pinhole in it, because one of the options you can do, I don't have sandpaper, so I'm just gonna work with what I got, but once you poke the hole through the tin foil, you're gonna try and measure it and see if it's close to what Mr. Pinhole gave you. Again, it doesn't have to be exact, it's just allowing you some sort of focus for your photo paper. So I want to mark where my pinhole is gonna go, and then I will calculate the pinhole size. And for this point, you're gonna need something pointy. You don't want anything, you're gonna wanna use either a needle or a thumbtack or anything that has a very fine point, because that's what's gonna give you the sharpness that you need to have good photos. Let me show you one of these needles. I'm sure you've all seen a needle before, and if you're scared of them, just close your eyes real quick. But you're gonna want a very thin, sharp point so that your pinhole will be as accurate as you can be with what you have. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and calculate. All right, here's where it's important after we have used Mr. Pinhole. So I had forgotten that you didn't have to measure the millimeters, because when you put in the inches, it also will convert it into millimeters for you. So the reason that they choose to do millimeters, because it can be more precise than you trying to find 0.019ths of an inch, which would be a lot harder than if you had made a pinhole with a diameter of almost 1 millimeter. So what that's going to look like on the ruler is going to be, you want your pinhole to be a little bit smaller than, or just as big as what's in between these two lines, because that's a millimeter. This whole thing here is a centimeter, right? So you're just going to want to be able to make a pinhole that's about the width across as the space between these two little indicators on a ruler. All right, so I'm going to try and do that, and then I will show you once I've made the pinhole how I measure and how it might be a little bit inaccurate, but that's just because it's a little bit difficult to do. So It doesn't have to be perfect. Just know that. All right, so for this part, I'm going to go ahead and use a needle because it's going to be more precise for me. If your pinhole ends up being a little bit bigger, then a thumbtack is a really good way because see how it's a little bit thicker. Let me show them side by side. Why I'm choosing to do a needle is because the thumbtack is too thick for my almost 1/2 millimeter. All right, so let me show you. I do recommend if you do have a cutting mat to go ahead and do that now, but I don't really care too much, but I will do it anyway because safety first, always. Let me show you. Okay, so I'm using the back of a notebook as my cutting surface, and I'm gonna go ahead and just make an initial small hole. I'm just poking it right in the center of my X and moving it around a little bit. I hope that you can see that. And so it didn't really go through. I'm going to show you with the flashlight where the light is coming through. Okay, so I'm going to cover his flashlight so you can see my pinhole. I don't know if you can see it very well, but see, there's the light coming through, right? And that's pretty small. That looks pretty good. So what I'm going to try and do right now is go ahead and measure it for you. Okay. Let's get our ruler. And I want it to be, yeah, okay. So let me show you up close. I don't know if the camera picks it up very well, but it's right within, and I'll zoom in here. See, my pinhole is that little spot. See it? Yeah. I'll zoom in right there. See, it's a little bit under, which is perfect because that's exactly what we want. See, that's super, super tiny. So what this means now is this is where the sandpaper, oh, I didn't realize it was blurry. There we go. I brought you back in. Okay. So this is where the sandpaper would come in because now that you have this super tiny hole, I'm going to zoom you back in. Here we go. All right, now that we have this little tiny hole, what you would do with the sandpaper is go ahead and sand off the little extra spots, which I don't have, so I'm just gonna have to suck it up and have an irregular hole, so that it would be a more precise circle. But I want you to see what my pinhole looks like up close. And it's just that little dot right in the center right here. And that's what's going to expose our photo, which is pretty cool. Okay, so now that we've done all of that, I am going to go ahead and tape it on the inside of my lid. And the reason you want to do it on the inside is just so it's more protected. So you want to remember where your pinhole is, and I like to have that X facing outwards so I can see where it's going to be. And you kind of want to center it in your square. That way you can get the most exposure on your photo, because if it's up here, this side of the photo paper will be more exposed than this side will be, because it allows more light to hit that side of the paper than if it was centered the middle, and then it will spread outward and you'll get a cool like the outside will be darker and then the inside will be a little lighter, and then right in the center it'll be nice and bright. So that's what we're gonna do, is we're gonna make sure that that's in the middle, right? And I'm gonna flip it over, and then I'm just gonna take some masking tape or duct tape, it's just whatever you have, and I'm gonna go ahead and fasten my pinhole nice and securely to my lid here. All right, and let me show you another side. Hold on tight, and then I'll flip it over, and see it's still centered, which is great. All right, so let me go ahead and fasten the sides all the way down, and we'll come back and I'll come back and I'll show you how to make your shutter. Okay, so now I want to do again a light test so you can see the pinhole now that it's firmly attached to my lid. See, now you can see that light, and that's what your photo paper is going to see when you expose it, which is super cool.